All right, so we're back to it, and I want to show you how you can make a custom material. I'm not happy with any of the materials that I've got here. Um, and the other thing too that I want to consider is, maybe what the environment is going to be that it's going to go inside of. So um, there's some different things that I can do. I can go ahead first and I can make a decision to make a material, or I could look at the other environments that I'm going to use. I already know that I want this to feel like a mountain. And the thing is, I was actually quite inspired by the rock wall from the last demo and the 2D demo. And so I think I might want to make a texture out of that. So if you take well, I guess I can't do that. Let's open the one that I made called, your last name logo 2D PSD. I'm going to open that. And what I'm going to do is where it says rock climber, I want to take that layer and I want to right click that, and while the other file is open, here's the other thing is that the logo 3D file has to be open also. So anyway, I'm going to take my rock climber, I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to duplicate that layer, and I'm going to put it in the 3D file. Okay. And so now if I jump back over there, you'll see that I have this file called Rock Climber. All right, and it's also a linked file. And the only thing is, well, and I should say, because these are all in the same folder, then the link is definitely still going to work. So that's pretty cool. So I think what I'm going to do, I want to move my layer panel. I'm going to dock it for a second, and I'm going to turn off the visibility for all that Instagram stuff, and I'm going to make some adjustments to this rock climbing layer. So let's do a free transformation. So it's Command T or Control T on Windows, and I'm going to make it so that this whole thing fits. So let's do that, and I think I'm pretty happy with it being like that. Maybe put it there. Okay. And the thing is, I got to get rid of the person climbing on the wall. So I can do this one of two different ways. I can either rasterize this layer, or I can do this non-destructively, and I can, create a layer on the top here that I did, like I showed you before, where we go and, use other tools. For instance, I can go and grab, where is it? Oh, that's the eraser. Oh, I just confused myself. I need to switch out my tool space. Let's really quickly go to my workspace, and just really quickly I'm going to go to Essentials, and whoops, and there's my healing brush tool. All right, so yeah, it gives you a limited tool panel in 3D. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and grab my healing brush tool. I'll do my spot healing tool. And I'm going to have sample all layers. I'll do content aware. I could also do proximity match. That's another option, so that it matches the pixels that are nearby. And I can also change the blend mode, but I think I'm just going to leave it alone. And we can just see how this ends up working for us. And so far, I think it's going to be okay. I think I need to make my brush a little bit bigger right here. So let's do this as a much larger brush. That's too big. Let's undo that one step back. And we're going to have to change what happens with the color. But remember, this is going to be used as like a pattern that is going to be applied to a 3D material. So if you want to leave these large dark veins in here, I think that that's actually probably not a bad idea. And you could also, while you're at it, go ahead and give this an adjustment layer. I'll put the adjustment layer on top here. Let's do an adjustment layer, and we could do something like either curves, or we could do contrast. Let's do curves and see if we can ultimately affect the contrast and make it a little bit more significant so that it has, you know, deeper color. Do something like that. And then there's a little bit of fall off on this edge over here that may or may not work. We'll give it a try. We'll see what happens. And so I think that I might be okay trying this. So let's go back to my layers, and what I want to do with these three things that I just created is I'm going to right click and I'm going to link them first of all. And then I'm also going to put them in a layer group, and we'll call this we'll call it material rock resource. Okay, and again, I'm going to duplicate this in case I do something to mess it up, and we'll just call it material rock resource original. And I usually do ORIG for short. Let's jump back into our 3D workspace, make our lives a little bit easier. So we can take where it says material rock resource. Okay, I'm going to leave the original alone. In fact, if I want to really be careful, I can go over here and I can lock it. Okay, and I'll take this new material rock resource folder. I'll click over here, not 3D extrusion, I want 3D postcard over in my 3D panel. And you have to make a postcard, which is going to be a completely flat, totally flat plane, but it'll be a plane in a 3D space with a texture applied to it. So I'll hit create. And the thing is, I can go ahead and move around the scene. Let me just show you. I'm going to click on current view for this camera down in the 3D panel, and I'm going to rotate around so that you can see what's happening here, right? I think that that's kind of, I think, helpful to see what I was talking about in terms of how it is a postcard, right? Okay, so just in case you're wondering, all right. Now with that postcard, and actually let's, I'm just going to get back to where I was in my history, so I'm not worried about it, you know, remembering that camera movement. Anyway, so if I go over here and take a look at the material that's being applied to this face of the postcard, then you'll see that it's got a globe up here. But you'll notice that it's not actually in the list. It's just showing that it's the current material because I created this postcard. So what I want to do is I want to click on this little gear right here, and I want to say new material, and it's going to ask me what I want to call it. I'm going to call it rock face. Okay. Oh, I think I've already used something called rock face, so I'll call it rock wall. Okay. All right, and so now I've got something that's called rock wall, and if I really wanted to use something that was called rock face, I could also, just so you know, click on that little gear and I could have reset the materials. It would get rid of all my materials, but it is what it is. But I just created something called rock wall, and the thing that I can do now, if I don't actually care about the postcard, is I can turn that off, and then I can go over here to my base mountain shape, right? And then I can choose the meshes for it, and if I don't like that redwood color or whatever they call it, I can choose my stone face and see how that looks. And I think that that actually might be much more appropriate. And there's some other things that you can do too, by the way, whenever you apply material to something. And one of the things is you can adjust the roughness so that you know, it looks like it's a rougher material. You can increase the bump. Now this is such a busy texture that you can't really see it all that well in terms of the changes that I made. So if I turn that down, you don't really see the difference, but there are some textures where it really does make a difference. And you can turn the reflection up, and what that does is it basically makes it like a very smooth thing so that it reflects a lot of light. So because this is stone, you probably don't want it to be too reflective, maybe a little bit reflective. But if it's supposed to be like rough hewn outdoor stone, then, you know. And then the shine is going to be something that just gives it like an inherent quality that uh, interacts with the light. And you don't want to turn that all the way down, but you don't want to turn it up too much. And so anyway, that's how you can adjust this. You've also got some other stuff like you've got refraction and so on. All right, but you know, I think I actually like the way that this texture looks now, and it's better than anything else that was in that mix. The other thing that I can do is if I go back up here to this to the whole object, like right here, and not just the faces, then I can also revisit, you know, my shape presets. If I think that I want to, you know, maybe go back to using something that's just flat and straight like that, I could adjust that. I probably want to make it so that the extrusion depth isn't as great. And then you could also look at some of these other options, you know, about how much you want to like pull pieces of it out and, you know, like, and see, it's also doing it down here to where it says spire. You know, I don't want it to be that much, but let's see. And then I can also sort of push this in manually like this if I want to work with the inflation that way. And yeah. All right, and then, you know, I could also adjust the width of the bevel if I wanted more of a bevel, and I'm adding that. I just can play with this so that I'm not actually using one of those other presets. If I want like a slight bevel on it, I can. I don't have to use something as monstrous as that other piece was before. But you'll see that one of the things about this is that if I go back to my current view, let's zoom out a little bit, and I rotate around, you can see that the back of this doesn't have the same treatment, which is probably fine. And then, you know, this might be something where I like having a little bit of volume on the front, maybe not quite that much. So maybe being able to see it kind of from this angle might help me a little bit more if I go back and I choose this object. And let's go back here and make some adjustments in terms of the angle. Actually, let's turn the strength down just a little bit so it has a little bit of shape, and just a little bit, like maybe 7 degrees or something like that. I can probably turn the strength up a little bit. There we go. And I think that that might be something that I could work with. And then I could do that to the front and the back so that it has kind of a bulkier volume. And you can see from this top orthographic view over here that it now just added that. So if I jump back to my current view camera, you can see that as I rotate around it, it does feel a little bit more like natural stone, right? And so I could sort of work with that, I think. And then if I don't want the extrusion maybe to be quite that thick, again, I can go back to my base mountain and I can lower the extrusion depth just a little bit. And let's just see with the current view, if I move the camera around, I think I might be able to work with something like that. Okay. And so that's how you can make a custom material and apply it, which is pretty cool, I think. All right.